Good evening. The board has now returned from closed session and will begin the regular session of the Keys Union School District Board meeting with item 4. Report out closed session items. We have nothing to report out. Do I have a motion to approve?
Moved.
I have a first. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who do you want to take, Dana? Jimmy got that one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to 4.2. We have two updates, 7.1 and 7.2. Do we have anything else to update?
No other items to update.
All right, thank you. Anything from the board? Do we have a motion to approve with the update 7.1 and 7.2, which are public comments?
Moved.
We have a first. Do we have a second? Jimmy gave that to you. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to the flag salute. Vice President Wesley Green.
Everybody please stand. Ready? Salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Wes. Moving on to item 6. I'll push that to our super. Mr. Brazil.
Okay, at this time it is each December we have what we call our organizational meeting, and so it's at this meeting this year that we install our new board members and that the board conducts housekeeping businesses in the sense of electing officers for the coming school year. So at this time I will be asking that Mr. Mike Burnell come up to the podium and I will administer the oath, and he will become the new board member, taking the place of Dr. Graywell, who will be leading us at this meeting. So,
Jeff has to do the oath too.
and Mr. Greener also will be sworn in. His term as the incumbent, he has remained on the board as well and was reelected. Dana, do you have the?
Jeff.
All right, if I could, good evening. I'd like to ask that both of you raise your right hand and please follow, allow me to repeat after my oath here. I, Mike Burnell, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Welcome and congratulations. Mr. Brennan, I'll ask for you to head over and take your seat. Raise your right hand. And repeat after me. I, Jeffrey G. Greener,
Brenner, take the binder.
solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States the duties upon which I am about to enter.
the duties that I'm about to. Congratulations.
It's a lot harder with the mask on, huh?
At least you can't see my mouth.
And the superintendent still has control of the meeting?
All right, and moving on to, is there a nomination for board president?
I'd like to nominate Jeff Reed. The reason is, the president's a very hard job. It's one that takes a lot of time and dedication. And I know how many hours he puts in trying to be aware of everything and help out everybody. And I think he deserves another term.
Thank you.
Mr. Emmons has nominated Jeff Greener, or Jeff Reed, I'm sorry, for president. Is there a second to that motion? Mr. Greener has now seconded the motion. Any further discussion or comments? Mr. Greener?
Aye.
Mr. Emmons?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Yes.
And
Thank you,
I will
guys.
turn it over to the president.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate the confidence. Moving on to board vice president. Do we have a nomination?
I would nominate Wes.
Mr. Green? We have a first. Do we have a second nomination?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Congratulations. Moving on to board clerk. Who's the board clerk this year?
Jimmy is aye.
All right. Do we have a nomination?
I nominate Jimmy.
All right. We have a first. Do we have a second for Mr. Emmons?
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Board trustee representative. I believe that was Mr. Graywall last time. I would nominate Mr. Greener. Do I have first? Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
And just to state that that is, the nomination or that position is to represent, the Keys School District at the county board of trustees, so.
All right, moving on to 6.3. Board members shall assume their new positions. We all in the same ones. Moving on to 6.4, approval of calendar of dates, times, and places of regular meetings and signatures of board, members and authorized agents. And I do want to say that this board has always been open to adding special meetings anytime we need to. So when we make this decision, we still need to be open for special meetings.
Absolutely.
Any questions or concerns about the calendar? Do we have a motion to approve as is?
I'll make that motion.
I have a first, I have a second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to invitation address to the Board of Trustees. We have two that have been emailed to the superintendent. And I'd like to add that when these are emailed to the superintendent responds, but also sends them to the board, so we get these on the day that he gets them too. And 7.1,
Jeff, sorry, can we pause for class?
yes, we're gonna take a quick recess.
We're not streaming, so I'm trying to figure out if it's at least recording,
Okay,
because we need to at least be able to have viewers access it at some point.
yeah, so take 10 minutes or whatever to
Okay.
figure out what you guys need to do.
Should we just hold on?
Thank you. Guess we're redoing all our votes.
TV timeout.
Take two. I won't make any of you do the oaths again. Those are the hardest thing to follow.
You're supposed to do them together, and they just say their own
I
names.
know, but I didn't.
We tried that one year. I couldn't even hear one.
Yeah. You choke on words when you're told to say it.
It's a lot.
But you're choked on words when you meant to say it. That stuff like that should be done at the counter.
Well,
What? Are we streaming?
that's fine.
Raul hasn't been watching?
We're all saying he was watching, and he says, oh, it just came up, and I called him, he goes, yeah, I'm watching it, it just came up, so there must be a delay. in the line.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Thank goodness, getting our tongue tied.
So are we, give us a count, Dana, are you ready? Okay, you wanna give us a countdown? All right, welcome back. We had some technical difficulties. All right, so we're coming back to 7.1. And as I mentioned before, these have been given to us ahead of time, but I'm going to read them because they are public comments. Good afternoon. Email is from Allison Combs. Good afternoon. As a parent, I'm extremely disappointed and frustrated to hear that our wonderful school will continue to remain closed without an open date. Because if this is my feeling that our children are not receiving the education they deserve in the Key School District. As I'm sure you know, many school districts in the area have already opened their elementary schools safely and students coming from 2 to 5 days a week. This tells me that Key School District is not doing everything they can to bring our children back into the classroom. We have been distance learning for 16 weeks this year already, and I have seen the negative social, emotional impact on my children. Unfortunately, my children are not the only ones affected in this way. I understand that there is a virus, and we need to ensure that our families stay safe. However, I believe that you, as a district, need to also consider the other risks that our students are facing when you decide to keep them home. We have really enjoyed being part of the Key School District. However, we feel like the district is not putting the students' needs first, and you are denying our children the education they need. I would like to hear back from you to explain while other elementary schools are open for in-person learning, while we remain closed for an undisclosed amount of time. Distance learning is not a long-term option for students. So what is the district doing to give our children an education that their peers are receiving at other schools? Remaining home until the virus is resolved is not an acceptable solution. Thank you for your time, and I will expect a reply from you. Please share this email with the board at your next meeting. Sincerely, Allison Combs. And we have item 7.2 from Christy Barrett. Superintendent Brazil and Principal Wynn. I just wanted to touch base with you before Christmas break to voice my frustration once again at the way KUSD has dealt and continues to deal with distance learning. It is incomprehensible to me that the school district dragged its feet and showed a complete lack of leadership in applying for the waiver in the fall when every other school district in our area applied for and was granted the waiver and are in school, in person right now. The school board says they advocate for students in Keys and want what's best for them, but their actions or inactions prove otherwise. There is no way that kids in what a large portion of underserved and underprivileged in this community are safer at home. They need to be in school and not staring at a screen that often won't even. They need to be in school and not staring at a screen that often won't even work because of internet issues. I have expressed many concerns multiple times this semester, and it has fallen on deaf ears. People that ask how my kids are doing are shocked to learn that they aren't back in school at least 2 days a week. And I tell them, yep, we are very disappointed in KUSD, and if there was another option that worked for our family, we would be gone in a heartbeat. Also know that I'm not alone. There are many other frustrated families who are looking into their options. Also, how is it not safe for me to pick up and drop off work for my students at a drive-thru, yet it's still safe to pick up food? It makes no sense. Also, after the debacle of COVID-19 has passed, might I suggest that the administration look at the way decisions are made between the charter school and the district. Who exactly is in charge? It seems that there's a lot of volleying back and forth and hesitancy to make decisions between the superintendent, principal, and the school board when it comes to KTL. Just an observation. Thank you for your time, Christy Barrett. Thank you. And we have no other public comments. Again, you guys are all free to email those to the district office, and we'll read them at our next board meeting. Moving on to 8, announcements. Most events have been postponed until further notice because of COVID-19. Moving on to 9, recognition, staff reports. We have read the packets. Do we have any questions? Principals want to share anything while you're here? Did you want them?
Yes, I would like to take this opportunity actually to make a presentation to our outgoing board member, Dr. Graywall, just a small token of our appreciation for his service to the district. So we have a plaque to commemorate his service, and we appreciate it. We hope that he will continue to be active in our community and support us as he has during his term. So thank you.
It was great working with him. We'll move on to consent agenda items. Action prepared. I'm tongue-tied like you guys were with your oaths. Actions prepared for the consent calendar are consistent with adopted and approved policies of the district and are deemed routine in nature. They will be acted upon in one motion without discussion unless members of the board request that an item be removed from the consent calendar. In that event, it will be taken up in the order indicated on the main agenda. Any questions or concerns from 10.1 through 10.6? Do I have a motion to approve? I have a first, I have a second.
I'll second.
All in favor? Jimmy?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to 11.1, approval of certificated classified confidential management personnel actions. Any questions or concerns? We have a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
We have a first, do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. You know, Mike, you can vote on something. You can jump in there if you want. Moving on, 11.2, presentation and approval of first interim budget report by Ms. Stephanie Morris. Whoa.
Have two mics today. Okay. You will please refer to your first interim report. Before I get started, I would just like to remind you all that at budget adoption, we had to adopt our budget before the state of California finalized their budget. And at that time, all schools were told that we would be receiving a 10% cut in revenue. So our budget was prepared with the 10% cut in revenue, and we also cut expenditures to meet that same cut in revenue. So then, once the state of California adopted their budget, they no longer cut schools by 10%. They instead initiated cash deferrals. So the deferrals for Keys Union School District will be applied in the months of February, March, April, May, and June. And that deferred cash totals about $2.1 million. So what that means is instead of receiving it in those months at the end of this fiscal year, we will receive it in July of the following fiscal year, so 1 month later. The district's prepared to absorb those cash deferrals. We have placed ourselves in a position where we can give a TRAN, which is a loan, if we needed it, but in our cash flow projections, we don't show that we'll be in need of any cash assistance. In addition, the Stanislaus County Office of Education has collaborated with the county treasury, and they will give us temporary loans if we ran into an emergency of some sort. So I feel like we're fully covered. We're not going to have any issues with cash. So I just wanted to remind you that that's where our original budget was adopted, and now we're doing our first interim report, which is our opportunity to update budgets now, knowing what the final California state budget is, and to adjust our budget for known changes in revenues and expenditures. So that's what this report is for. So if you'll turn to page 2 of your report, one of the things I wanted to point out is the 2 yellow highlighted items. Our district enrollment is very important this year. I know Dr. Brazil sends you letters every week letting you know what our enrollment is, and that we're down about 21, 22 students from prior year. So when I prepare our budget and all of my interim reports going forward, we're required to use an enrollment number for one specific point in time for the entire year. And that point in time comes in October, and it's called CBEDS. So at CBEDS, our enrollment was 759. However, we know that our enrollment is down much more than that. So due to COVID-19, the state has told us that we have a hold harmless this year for enrollment because they know that a lot of school districts are experiencing declining enrollment. So last year, our enrollment was 768, which means that our funded average daily attendance is the second yellow line, which is 736.13. So the correlation between enrollment and ADA, they correlate. So the point I'm trying to make is, again, if you look at the enrollment, so last year was 768. We know in October of this year, our enrollment was actually down 9 students to 759. But right now, we know we're down about 21, 22 students. So in my multi-year projections, I have accounted for that deficit, and I'm assuming that that will be ongoing. So what that does is it reduces our funding in the out years. So all of that has been built into this budget and multi-year projection. So hopefully we will get those students back and we won't actually be down to 22. But if we are, this budget is built around that assumption. So it's being very conservative. Do you have any questions about that?
You said there was multiple schools where children were
not active there?
Throughout California, a lot of
Where
schools
are they
are.
going?
I think a lot of other states,
Okay,
but we keep track of that. So we know what students are leaving our district and where they go.
And also with the whole district learning, they're going to private,
well,
schools.
I think that's.
They're going to
one
private
idea.
schools, they're going to independent study programs, it's a trend.
The trend is a trend that's across the state. There is some movement to other states for employment, and also there absolutely are students who are moving into the private schools and religious schools.
It might be a silly question, but is there any way during this epidemic that children just don't attend and we can't track that?
So there have been stories in the news of those kind of things. There were some schools back east that were saying they have children that they just can't find, and they're like hiring people to go out and knock on doors and try to
Right.
find kids.
Miss Chavez chases them down though.
Yeah,
I don't think we're having that problem in our
Gotcha.
district, so we've accounted for all of our kids.
No, I will say that both of our, or all of our administrators are contacting individuals. If, for example, they're not attending Zoom lessons and are not there, we have Mel, who's our community liaison person, who also makes home visits and attempts to get students if they are indeed not attending. So our administration is daily tracking who is on and who's not on. We're able to print out reports and then follow up with trying to make parent contact and ask why those students aren't attending.
gotcha. Okay.
So the point I want to make is that while we know that we're down in those students this year, it's probably an anomaly. We're hoping that those kids will come back, but if they don't, I built the budget conservatively on the assumption that we won't get those kids back.
Gotcha.
The other thing I wanted to point out on this page is I always show you the increasing cost of PERS and STIRS, or retirement costs for employees. And one of the things that the state did give us in relation to the COVID-19 pandemic is they gave us a little bit of a break on the STIRS rate for this year. So when you look at 2021 on that graph, you see a little bit of a dip, and that was to help schools out. But then eventually by 22, 23, we're right back up to where we would have been before the pandemic, as far as
Cause
those costs.
they bought some of that off, right? Didn't they give them money to
Yes.
help lower that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and now if you will turn to page 7. This is a page we don't often review, but I wanted to point out all of the lines that I've highlighted in green. These are all of the new pots of money that our school district received due directly to COVID. And this was part of what was called the CARES Act. And so it was many different pots, and even the charter school received $48,000 in CARES Act funding. And these are the funds that we've used to purchase technology and PPE and many, many other things. So we've actually, the business office has spent an exorbitant amount of time these last few months trying to budget and spend these new dollars, which were very much appreciated, very helpful. Then if you'll turn to page 5, this is the comparison between the board-approved budget and the first interim budget. So the first interim budget is the column in blue, and you'll see that we have revenues of $11,721,000, and then below that, total expenditures of $11,041,000. So that gives us an excess of revenues of $679,000, which is really, really good. The only problem is we have since received our fee-for-service invoices for our special education services. And those services are coming in at about $350,000 more than budgeted. So that $679,000 I'm projecting or expecting to be cut in half by second interim, which you'll be getting that report in March. And keep in mind that this budget only goes through October 31st. So when we get those special education costs in November and December, we cannot build it into this budget. So with that, we have a beginning fund balance of $4.2 million and an ending fund balance of $4.9 million. page 8. So page 8 shows us that in the third column to the right, the total general fund, we end with that ending fund balance of 4.9 million. And of that, you can see all of our reserves, which are in red. So all of these monies are things that we are planning to do with that ending fund balance. And this includes a 9.5% reserve for economic uncertainty. So we have our board policy to keep it between 9.5% and 10%, or I'm sorry, 9 and 10%, and I always keep it at 9.5%. So out of our fund balance, we're able to meet all of our assignments, and we'll still end with an unassigned amount of 22.5%, which is the $2,483,000 figure. So total reserves, when we take our reserve for economic uncertainties plus our unassigned reserve, we are ending with a 32% reserve, which is extremely healthy. And then if you flip to page 9, this is showing the projected ending fund balance. So in blue, we're projecting the fund balance in 2021, and then 21-22 and 22-23. And you'll notice that the fund balance goes down just a little bit in the third year. And remember, that's because I'm basing this budget on the reduced enrollment in ADA. And then if you will flip to page 10, this is our multi-year projection, and this is just showing you the same how we're getting those ending fund balances. So in year 1, which is 2021, we have the $679,000 excess of revenues. In the second year out, I'm showing you we still have excess revenues of $164,000. And in the third year out, if we do receive the reduced ADA and enrollment, we would then be deficit spending $329,000. But we would still, even with that, if that were to come to fruition, we would still have a very healthy ending fund balance of $4,758,000 in that third year out. And finally, if you'll turn to page 13, this is a review of our Fund 9 for the charter school. So the charter school has revenues of $3.2 million, expenditures of $3.1 million. So they have excess of $140,000. They'll be making their debt service payment of $112,000, which will leave them a net increase of $28,000 for the year. So that's very healthy. They still have all of their reserves and assignments. And if you flip to page 14, this is just a projection of the charter school's ending fund balance and the historical fund balance over time. So I just want to remind you that in January, the governor will release his plan for the next fiscal year for 2021-22. And we are actually expecting that he will be reducing the cash deferrals to school districts because the economy has been doing so well, and they're flush with cash. So hopefully we won't even see the impact of any deferrals in the coming months. Are there any questions?
Any questions?
Looks like you've got us in pretty good shape.
Except for our special education costs. Thank you.
All right, thank you for coming tonight and explaining. Good, tell your staff great job on the paperwork. All right, do we have a motion to approve the first intern?
I'll make that motion.
We have a first, do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye? Aye. All right, thank you. Moving on to 11.3, approval of Keys Union School District Local Control Funding Formula, LCCF Budget Overview for Parents.
So what we, in place of the LCAP, which is what we have grown accustomed to this year, it's been, some of those requirements have been suspended and some other documents have actually been added as requirements, and one of them was a document to share with parents on what exactly our LCFF money or what our state revenue is going towards. And so tonight I ask that the board approve that. It has to be submitted by today. Today is the deadline. And I've been shared with the county that the board will be taking action tonight to approve that. And it's simply an information item that the state is asking us to do to show that we are being accountable for sharing with parents and community what the money is being spent on. And so those will be posted on our website and available for anyone who wishes to look over those reports.
All right. Any questions?
And the same thing is for the charter school also has to submit one. So it's the district submits theirs and the charter submits their own.
And the deadline for them is the same?
The same deadline, yes, and they have both been completed and submitted to the county ahead of time, again, with the anticipation that they would be approved tonight.
Must be difficult building that one with a closed school.
Yeah.
All right, any questions or concerns? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I think we've got Wes over here for the
That's
first.
because I was closer to the mic.
We have a first, we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to 11.4, approval of Keys to Learning Charter School Local Control Funding Formula. Same, we just talked about this, but it's for the charter school.
Correct.
Any questions or concerns? Anything you'd like to add, Rusty, or all good to go? Motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Oh, geez, you guys gotta stop racing. Who wants it?
I'll give it to you.
All right, we got a first by Jimmy. Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to,
Just to share, I think Rusty and I were both kind of relieved that it really was all about the numbers, and we had to depend on our CBOs and a lot less writing from what we normally are expected to do for the LCAP. So this was a little bit of a reprieve, although we'll start working on the LCAP and plans for that are already underway.
thank you. Good job. Moving on to 11.5, public hearing of history, social science, instruction material adoptions for 6 through 8, Impact California Social Studies. We'll open that at 6:34. Any discussion?
I'd just like to share that our district is looking at adoption of the history, social science instructional materials for grades 6 through 8, which is called Impact California Social Studies. And we have looked at multiple programs. We've gotten staff recommendations. The curriculum committee looked at it, and the adoption committee. And so we're at this point ready to move forward with the adoption.
Any questions or concerns? Mr. Stewart, thumbs up, thumbs down? All right. We will close at 6:35. Moving on to 11.6, approval of history, social science, instruction material adoption, 6 through 8, Impact California Social Studies. Do we have a motion to approve?
Make that motion.
I have a first, do I have a second? Come on, Mike, get in on this one.
Okay, a second.
All right, we got a second from Mr. Burnell. All in favor?
Aye.
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 See. Moving on to 11.7, approval of revised board policies, BB 925. And the whole list keeps going
I
on.
want to talk about those a little bit, so new board member knows there's a policy.
Sure, these policies are all updates from the California School Boards Association that we engage in their service. They actually publish them, and then we as a district approve those that we feel are tailored to our district, and the board adopts those. And so these are, typically we have updates from them about every 3 months. And so all of these are policy and administrative regulations that deal with the education for foster youth, education for homeless and children, and board policy also on reimbursements and other benefits. For example, our board receives a choice of either a specific amount towards their benefits if they choose to take the benefits from the district. Or they can take a cash stipend of, I believe, $250 a month, which is per meeting. So those are all within those policies, and there are regulations that, for example, a board member cannot have more compensation in the sense that, for example, if they were taking benefits, we could not pay their full benefits if we weren't doing so for other employees in the district. So that's really what the policy is, to establish that you don't have that happening and that you have controls in place that won't allow that to happen.
And this is something you'll see regularly, just updates. In years past, we didn't update for years, and the district office had a lot of cleaning up to do on that one. But, we're all caught up now, so do we have a motion to approve? If there's no more discussion? I have a first, I have a second? Mike got another one. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Perfect. Moving on to 11.8, approval of ACES program leader salary schedule to reflect 2021 minimum wage increase. This is just keeping up with times, correct, Ms. Morris?
It's to reflect the increase in minimum wage. I will say that it is very tough to find individuals who are to staff some of our programs if we were fully open, and we have a number of open positions that we cannot fill. So I want people to realize that, you know, even with the increase in minimum wage, it's tough for someone to make it on those kinds of wages. And so therefore we experience the very difficult time of filling those positions and trying to run programs.
All right, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
I have a first, I have a second? Got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 11.9, approval of Healthy Start Family Service Worker to reflect 2021 minimum wage. Same topic, different
Same-
position.
Absolutely, just a different position.
We have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
We have a first, do we have a
I'll
second?
second it.
We got a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to 11.10, approval of MOU between KUSD and CSEA. Mr. Brazil?
Yes, CSEA and the district have met and for quite some time have come together, and we have a maintenance or an agreement in place that will allow for us to be able to open, knowing that we would have the support of classified staff. We are working with the same with our teaching staff to assure that when we open, that we are as safe as we possibly can.
Do we have a motion to approve? I have a first, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 11.11, approval of MOU reopening addendum between KUSD and CSEA. Mr. Brazil?
That is, again, that is the same thing. I think it's on their, actually, but
This is excellent.
oh, this is actually the addendum. What we did is we agreed to keep, we had already established an MOU early on, and then now we've added some additional materials to reflect the current guidelines and regulations that we're having to adhere to when we reopen.
So it's just been an update since the last time they met.
Correct.
Motion to approve?
I'll make that
Do we
motion.
have a first? Do we have a
I'll
second?
second.
We have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. 11.2, approval of allowance of community to attend and construct a plan for the community to attend the next and future board meetings.
So this was an item that was asked by public comment to place on the agenda as an item of discussion for the board to address how they would, in the future, allow individuals to address the board by coming in person.
I'd like to add in that, even if we weren't on governor orders, I don't think we should be opening the campus to the public right now. But especially in the governor's orders, we shouldn't be. But I'm not in favor, we're getting the public comments and we're reading them. I'm not in favor of inviting non-staff on campus.
I don't think we have anything to gain by bringing them in, and there's a lot to lose, potentially.
Discussion?
Well, so we have a group of people that are requesting to come to this meeting?
To have an option to come, yes.
Absolutely. We've had a request by members of the public to be able to, in person, come and attend the meeting and share with you their thoughts versus having them read by someone else. What they're asking is that they be allowed to come, which the order has not allowed us to do so. What we've done is the individuals who have attended are staff members who we feel are essential and need to be here.
And we're responsible for it.
And we're responsible for those individuals and oversee their well-being while they're here. So, again, but this was a request for the board to
And we've
engage
made
in
it nice and
discussion.
easy though for them to voice their,
The only downfall with what we're doing is I'm reading it in my tone and not their tone.
right.
but their words are coming across and the points are coming across.
Gotcha.
I feel like the very limited staff that we have show up to run this meeting, we're still responsible for them at all times. They're our employees. I don't think we should be opening campus to,
I would agree, except the way you read it and the way they may perceive it may be two different things, and maybe that's the reason they want to come in person, so.
That is
exactly-
exactly what
That's
the
absolutely-
point is. Yes, they feel that if they're here in person, that they can convey a message that they feel is not being conveyed simply by having it read. And so their point is, why are we not having individuals allowed to come? And the response to that has been that we are following the orders of the governor, and that we are not allowing guests to attend in person, that we provide the opportunity for any member of the public to submit comments, to send us information ahead of time, and that it will be read here. But again, it's read under the tone of whoever happens to be reading,
Would
may
it
not inflict the message.
So would it be in the best interest of both parties to have it audio rather than Jeff reading it so we can get their full interpretation? I mean, just a thought, not knowing.
it's
if that's-
definitely a thought, but we're running, we don't even know if we're running this live stream right tonight.
Right,
We're running on figuring this out as we go.
sure.
And I agree, I don't read it in the same tone that they want.
Sure.
I mean, some
Well,
of this,
you may, we don't know,
I mean,
right?
some of this stuff's hard for me to even read or admit to, because they're not my words.
Right.
And
Would you be able to do like you said, have it on video,
But then
audio?
the fact that we have to make sure that's all recorded, it's heard. We already get complaints that it's hard enough to hear us. Do we really want to bring another audio device into this situation? And I think that's pushing limits.
Because, I mean, honestly, if
So-
I was gonna come in to speak, I'd want to come and speak to you instead of asking me to read it. So is there a way to maybe have a certain amount of people, because you can't have everybody in there.
I don't feel comfortable having the public come on campus.
Yeah, one or many, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we've kept the staff very limited. Even if they want to come, we don't allow them to come. No staff is allowed on campus right now without administration.
Is there a problem with broadcasting, guys? Sorry, just checking.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, I mean, we're having issues right now with technology right now. Do we really want to add another component into this?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Well, so when you first get the letter, you immediately send it to me, so I read it. And then when I get it in my binder, I read it again. And then when I come to the board meeting, I follow through it. I said, this is the third time I've seen this letter. We are reading. And we can hear 'em.
But I think the interpretation may be at question here. In other words, you can say the same words, but if you say them in a different tone, as Jeff mentioned,
Oh, yeah.
it can change
Absolutely.
the
I
whole
totally
conversation.
understand.
So would it be, then if audio isn't something, could there be a neutral party that reads it? Or is there a protocol that says that can't happen?
Well, it's not about a neutral party. I can't say the same words you want to say your way.
Mhm.
So if we had our CBO say that same word, it's not going to be the way you wanted it. It's not going to be the way I wanted it. So
Yeah.
a neutral party. I just think the only way we could kind of do this is through the phone or something, and I think that's adding another dynamic that we're already having issues with technology as it is. I think.
Well, and I think what will happen, and I hope very soon, will be some restrictions laxed or others implemented that will allow for small numbers of participants to be able to come in. Again, that has not been what the board has chosen to follow and has followed the order of the governor. There are many places that are holding meetings completely virtually. You have,
We almost held tonight virtually.
absolutely, there is still the opportunity. The point, I think, that this individual who requested this, and I'm sure that there are others that feel exactly the same way, truly is what she eloquently said, that it's being read by someone and the message they do not feel is being portrayed that needs to be portrayed. And that it is, the other notion is that it is much more difficult or people will take something more to heart if it's a conversation in person versus something being said behind a camera or behind some kind of a social media mechanism.
I think that the key is we all, and it goes out to everyone, we all want to be heard. And when we're not able to be heard, and we're going through this particular way, I completely sympathize with the parents. I completely sympathize. I'm trying my best to come up with something that could pacify that, to make them feel like they're being heard in a way they want to be heard. If there's no way that can happen, and this has to be the way, then I support the board's decision. But if there's an avenue that we can direct our thoughts on, I'm for that too. And I think I'm trying to speak for them as well.
Well, if it wasn't winter, we could do it outside. But
I don't even think we should have our gates open to the public. So even outside, I don't. When the public comes onto our campus, we are then responsible for it. Our administrator, this board is responsible for it. What we're taking into effect is like, we're not even letting administrators come to these meetings unless they've been asked to come because they have something to present. And it's like, these are meetings that they always come. It's part of their job duties. And it's like, those are our paid staff that we're responsible for at all times.
So
They're on our health insurance.
So my point is, so this is what I love about it. I feel like I'm not even being heard. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in that I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. I'm trying to convey a message, and I feel like my message isn't being heard. Now, I know, and I support our board's president 110%. And I agree we shouldn't have people on campus. But I also think that there might be another avenue. Whether we determine that tonight, tomorrow, or the next day, that's to be talked about later. But I at least want the public to know that we are open to getting their message heard, if it's not being heard in the way that they feel it's not. And that's basically what I'm saying.
I think technology is an issue.
Yeah, and I'm not saying this I'm just throwing options out there. I'll think about it tonight, and I might have something for us, you know?
Well, I think I'm just going to share that I think that this is an absolute terrible time. It has forced us to have in place things that we don't like, that are very, for example, I go to some patrons, I have no choice but to wear my mask, or I'm not allowed to participate or to engage. What we are asking for this is simply until the health officials and state officials state that it is okay for individuals to congregate, I think that we are providing an avenue for those to share their frustrations and again, I echo those frustrations. I think that's what I don't think many people understand. We understand the best way to instruct children is one-on-one, and it is live in person. It is not via a Zoom call. I get it. However, the environment we live in right now deems that that is the safest way to do that. And so I think that, again, if we were simply not hearing, which is, I think, what public feels,
Sure.
which I believe we are. I have responded and continue to each call, each email, each whatever text message, whatever it is, I have responded to and have shared with the board. So from my perspective as superintendent, I don't want it to be thought that I have not communicated or that I did not share. I may not share or communicate in the same means and spirit that it may be shared with me, but I have. And so my concern would be if we had no avenue, then I think that would be absolutely wrong. Given the circumstances and the times we're living through, I think the policy we have in place is merited. That's just again, the board needs to make that decision. That's not a decision. I would follow what the board tells me to do, but.
I agree. I don't read it in their tone, but
Sure.
I mean,
I'm not even saying that you do or don't.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that if they feel they're not being heard, what can we do to help if we can? And it almost sounds to me like this is the best we can do at this moment, then I support
At
that
this
100%.
moment,
Yeah,
You know, when this is all over, man, we like the crowd.
sure.
People just tell us everything they think, but right now, this is the safest way to go.
Yep.
And that's why we're doing this, for safety, not to be mean.
There you go.
Discussion?
Maybe next month we could revisit it because, you know, we have a vaccine that's coming out and,
Sure.
you know, we might be in a better situation than we're in right now. If we could table it or,
We have a motion to table?
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion to table. Do we have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. This will be on next month's agenda. We'll talk about it again.
And Mr. Burnell, if there is any point in time that we hear that that is allowed, I will also absolutely communicate with the board, letting you all know that we can, or this has been changed, or this has been revamped or revised. So absolutely, I don't think that there's a single person here who does not want to hear from the public. It's the way in which we're asking them to participate at this time that's frustrating, and I get it.
All right, moving on to 11.3, approval of possible delay of reopening schools. Mr. Brazil?
Well, as I've shared with parents, students, staff, and with the board, we did not submit our waiver when we were in Tier 2 during the red stage. So by the time we submitted our plan, when the board made the decision to go ahead and submit the plan and the waiver at the same time, we reverted to purple. And since then, the issue for a stay-at-home order has been issued for 3 weeks. And so I am simply stating to all of you what I believe to be that there is not any possible way that we are going to open on the 4th. So what I'd like to share with the board is that at any time, day, that I get a call or a communication from our county public health officials stating that we have a waiver or our plan has been approved, I will be the first to let everyone know, and I will ask at that time that we call a meeting and that we establish a new date for reopening. At this point, I just don't know how long this stay-at-home order will be, whether it will be extended. I've asked for county health to continue to look at our plan and our waiver and to please tell us if there is something they want us to change in terms of protocols and procedures of when we do open, so that we are not rejected and given a copy of or a response that we did not approve your waiver and here's the reasons why. I would rather fix it ahead of time, and I have the payable day, night, and day of the week, including weekends, to do that, and I have a staff that's committed to that as well. But at this point, I I cannot tell you that we are prepared to open on the 4th. And I think that that's because we don't have the authority to do so.
We're prepared to open, we're just not allowed to open.
And that is,
I wanna
caught
correct
that.
that.
I thought the same thing. We are prepared, 100% sure we're prepared, just we're not able to at this point
Yes.
based on,
well, and the other thing is that when it is approved, the probability that if it is a waiver in the sense that the waivers were initially set out, we can only open for transitional kindergarten through 6th grade. And in small cohorts for students who need additional instruction or support, we can also do
so
that.
it isn't gonna
But
be,
it will not
it
be
isn't
a
gonna be
full.
all back to normal.
Well, I'll tell you right now, classes and schools are shutting down every single day.
As we speak, yeah.
I just don't want to give false information or share with the public something that we will not be able to do. So again, I don't know when they will approve it and what conditions that approval will bring. If there is any change between the first set of waivers that was given out, and there are 3 districts, I believe, in this county that did not seek it at that time either. So I don't know what those changes will be. Again, the only thing I could do is be preventive and ask them, please review it, and if there are changes you need us to make, give me time to make those changes and to discuss with my staff so that we can meet those requirements. And again, I will be more than happy to have a meeting of the board at any time that that approval comes. I welcome it.
Sure. And I'm sure the board, all of us, myself included, would be willing at any time as well.
Absolutely.
So we need a motion with some verbiage on this. So I'll make a motion that we delay, the reopening of the school with a meeting as soon as we can when we get results. Is that correct? Yeah?
So that we will establish a reopening date once we have had a waiver approved,
Yes,
and we will hold a meeting
yeah. Got that,
to
Dana?
establish that date.
We need more than just a vote on that one.
Okay, just so I know, the waiver is being reviewed. It's not been approved, but it's not been approved because why?
Because the stay-at-home order from the governor states that there will be no approvals of
Gotcha.
waivers during that time.
And that's the key.
Go back over.
Okay.
Correct. So
I wanted to make
so
sure.
what happens is we submit the waiver to our county public health officers. They then submit to the state Department of Health. And both have to agree and come to terms that, yes, they will approve that waiver and that they feel that all precautions and all the requirements that they established as part of a waiver have been met. So that's what we're holding on to now is the problem that the order simply states or states that we can't take, they won't take any action in those 3 weeks.
Right, gotcha.
They could extend them or not.
And that period could be extended. I don't.
They could have a whole new waiver plan.
Yeah.
You know what, though, if they're allowing schools to be open, I don't see why they couldn't do the waivers anyways. Because they're saying that the kids should be in school anyways, but why can't they
The
just?
schools are closing down faster than they're opening up.
And that's the key. They're actually closing down now again.
That's true.
So the kids have been going up and down, back and forth, where we have made a decision to keep things at least somewhat,
Practical as we
yeah,
can.
perfect word.
And again, that has come at a price and comes at a price. I fully understand that. Again, there is nothing like in-person instruction, and these kids are home and they are struggling. I don't think there's a person here that wouldn't say that it doesn't feel for them. I'll be honest, as an adult, I'm struggling with it. Our staff struggles with it. And so to think the kids are not being impacted is almost insulting in the sense that we get it. But we have other guidelines that we're forced to follow. And for example, now, this 3-week period, if they won't approve them, then what can I do? You know, granted, we didn't apply when there was an opening. Well,
But we didn't apply because the board approved, not because of your actions.
no, I'm not taking that personal or taking that at all. I'm just sharing that I want people to understand that this is not a black and white issue and so easily divided right down in the middle. This is very complicated, and these are people's lives that we're dealing with. And I personally don't want to be responsible for the illness or passing of any staff member or child.
Sure. And
I know what death is, and I've experienced it many times in my life. It is not pleasant to lose a loved one. And again, if we can prevent people from coming together in a way that will help them to not contract this terrible virus, then I think that's what this board has tried to do. I don't necessarily agree with it or disagree with it. I'm trying to simply state that this is the reality we have faced. And I think we've done the best that we can collectively. Is it okay for everyone? No, there are some people that don't agree with it. Again, I don't know that there's a right or wrong. What there is what each individual feels and thinks and has taken to try and protect staff and students in this particular district. I can't answer for what other people do. I can't answer for what other districts and other communities have shared.
But on the other hand, I get a lot of parents saying, we're glad you're not open.
Every day,
Oh, yeah.
every single day.
These are only 2 letters from people that aren't happy. People, the rest of them, you know,
Or, hey, you guys open, I put my kids on NP studies.
there's a lot of people.
And we have, based on our surveys and the work that we've done in preparing, for applying and for reopening, we do have a percentage, and a rather high percentage of students whose parents are stating that they do not want to return until a vaccine, which we're slowly seeing and coming into play, and hopefully will move rather quickly. But until that happens, they don't feel comfortable in sending them. So we are prepared, and we know that we will have to continue distance learning with some students. And I respect that and have to. It may not be what I think is perfect, but if that's what a parent chooses, then that parent has a right to do that. And who am I to tell them what to do with their child? But again, I have to look at it as the whole picture, and I think that that's what this board has done, is looked at it for the good of the whole community, not just one individual person. And those are hard, tough decisions to make.
That's not saying that one individual person isn't being heard, because that one individual person is being heard by all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but we have 1,100 students. and
Absolutely,
over
but I
100
want to make
staff.
sure we know that one is still being heard.
I think that we're in the right track, you know, we're not shutting the doors, but yet we're waiting for the opportunity to visit it, to move in a direction to open, but just right now we can't open because of other guidelines.
Perfectly said.
Second, I'm ready to
I made the motion with the long sentence that Dana got correct.
Okay.
Yes? All right, do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to discussion items 12.1. I don't think we can talk about this anymore, possibly. Do we have any coronavirus updates?
Well, no, aside from the governor this morning has released his plan for vaccinations, and I'll be honest, I am still kind of trying to grasp the entire process. So at this point, it is being implemented and provided to those who are on the front lines and who are healthcare providers who are being provided the vaccine first, and then the individuals or elderly individuals who live in care facilities or people who require care regardless of their age that live in facilities that will be the next step. And then he has unveiled his tier of then what is the next group, and including education and workers in the education area. So we will continue to follow that, and again, I think it will depend on how quickly they can get the number of vaccines that they will require to at some point reach herd immunity, which is what I think at that point then will be deemed as being immune from the virus.
All right. Any other? All right, moving on to reports. 13.1, Superintendent Report. Mr. Brazil.
Aside from what I shared just now, I want to take again the opportunity to thank both the administrators and staff at all of our sites for toughing through some of the most tough of times that I think any of us as educators ever thought that we'd face. I don't think any of us went into it, and I know I shared this before, but what they are feeling is just as frustrating as what everyone is feeling in terms of being an administrator or a teacher or a classified employee or whatever it may be. They are all struggling through this, and I do appreciate and value their tenacity and their pursuit to do what's right for kids. And I think that we didn't ask for this to come, but I think we will get through it. And I think we will be a better community and a better district as a result of some of the things that we're having to endure at this time. But I do feel that at least at this point, there's a ray of hope. And that hasn't been out there. We all wanted to hear that there would be a vaccine available. And I think we're finally hearing that. And so I'm hoping that that really is the answer. I don't know. And I hope that it is, but I know that I have staff that will, the day we are deemed to open and that we can, will be there and will assure that we are here to help kids. And that we continue to do the best that we absolutely can while in distance learning and providing experiences as well as we possibly can. Technology is an issue. It's an issue not just because of our district, but it's because technology has been put through the ringer for a lot of this. And the capability of so many kids and so many individuals being online at the same time has been trying. And so, again, I just want to thank all of them. I want to thank parents who do call and who are very positive and appreciate what we're doing. I also appreciate those that aren't and that aren't pleased with it and that they want to share. I can't say that I don't value their opinions. I do, and I take them to heart. So, again, I just hope that this will. I wish that it would be just like when we closed. Here's the day, and it's closed. Well, I look forward to the day that here's the day, and we're opening. And I think that is the case for many of us, if not all of us.
All right, thank you. Moving on to board member comments. Mr. Emmons?
Well, really, I'd just like to welcome Mr. Burnell and to the group. Look forward to working with you. I guess it's tough times to come in, but I think we get into it, I think you'll enjoy it. It's got good parts, bad parts, and sad parts, but it makes you feel good. You do a good job.
Thank you. Mr. Green?
I haven't had the honor yet of meeting her.
He's your neighbor. He
Yeah.
sits next to you now.
It's a pleasure to have you sit with us, my
Thank
friend. Yes. Mr. Superintendent, so I just want to make sure that it's heard that this isn't black and white. You use that phrase, this isn't black and white. There are so many gray areas in this, and I think that is probably where the lack of understanding comes from. Some may think it's black or white. Either we open or we don't open. I've heard the phrase too many times from too many people. Either you're going to open or you're not going to open. But what they don't understand is all the dynamics that go on in your decisions. I can't even fathom it to be me personally. And when I think about it, I think, my gosh, you're going through too much. And I can tell in your voice that it's overwhelming. And so I sympathize with that. And I sympathize with the people that think it's black and white. The problem is, we're in a pandemic. We're in the middle of chaos. And I think we're doing a marvelous job to our ability to be able to meet the needs of our children. I see it. I have children. I see the teachers. I see how they're interacting. It may not be perfect, but it's getting our kids the best we can give them. And I just want to make sure that the board, the public, the staff, everybody knows that I appreciate all what is happening. And I thank you for it. So I think that's what I wanted to convey tonight.
All right, thank you. Mr. Burnell, first time up?
I just see we're living in some perilous times and uncertain times, and it's a privilege to be here on the board and to see everybody's views, and we will get to pass through this. And I look forward to being with you guys.
Thank you. Mr. Greener?
Every week, I deal with 7 kids, and I see these kids sit there. They try, but I also hear the teachers and their symptoms. Sometimes I can hear the frustration, but I want to say thank you to those teachers, because it's got to be hard on them. And I think some kids are lacking. It's going to happen. But the teachers are still doing a very good job, the best they can. And they would love to be back as well. And that's what I hear all the time. I can't wait to see the kids. And I can't wait till this stuff's over.
Yeah.
Because our lives are turned upside down with it this way. I hate it. But I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year's, and hopefully 2021 better.
All right. My turn. I have a list. Behind the cameras, which you can't see, there's a whole bunch of boxes for the Christmas basket program. that our volunteers put together. They've been doing this ever since I was a little tiny kid. Mel Chavez is in charge of it. She puts a great deal of time in, and this year more than ever, these families need these baskets, and I'm seeing a lot of toys, and that's all donated, and it's life changing. I was a recipient as a kid, and it was life changing. It's emotional to deal with. I help box them, but I can't deliver them, and I appreciate all the volunteers that are going to help hand those out. It's going to be tricky this year with all the coronavirus, but the families still need that food. They still need that service. When we shut down campus for a couple weeks, I came in and served lunch, and it was amazing to see the numbers are still up, extremely high. It's amazing and sad because they need the food, but it's amazing that we are still providing it for the families, and it is very important that they have it. I mean, some of these families come up and you see those cars and you see those people and they're your neighbors and you know they need it, and I appreciate it. And the best thing was some of the families were saying they didn't need it all. They didn't want that much milk. They didn't want things to go to waste. And that was the most amazing thing ever when people say, just give me half the milk, because it's a lot of milk that the school hands out. And it was really appreciative to give that to somebody that needs it, or a larger family or whatever. Going back to 11.2 with allowing the community in the board meetings. I know I do not read the letters as they're written. I guarantee that. I understand that. I am sorry. They're hard to read sometimes. They're hard to admit. It's hard to say some of those words because those aren't my words. And without a public, it's hard they don't know that those aren't my words. We are trying our best with technology. We almost had tonight meeting strictly Zoom. I thought the technology, superintendent and I thought the technology wouldn't handle, or something would go wrong. So we're here tonight. So we could be very much at home in these meetings. Special thanks to DataPath for coming in and stepping in and helping with us. In some of these letters we've been getting over these months, it talks about the board doesn't serve the kids or doesn't understand the kids. We all have students or family members. Jimmy has half the town in school right now. That's part of his family. We all have them, and like Wes said, we see them sit through the Zooms, and it's struggle. And you hear the teachers struggle from our school, from Turlock, from all the schools around us. They struggle. Every teacher I talk to, they say they don't feel they're doing enough for the kids. And like Jeff said, they're working harder than they'd have to if they were in the classroom. But they're not feeling like they're doing a good enough job, and they're doing an amazing job, and I appreciate that. But this board, you look at now the five of us, we all have kids. We've all coached some kind of sport in this town. We've all worked every single town function we've ever had in this town. This board is all about kids, and that's what we're here for. That's what we're elected for. We all have kids in this community. We've raised kids in this community. The soccer, the baseball, the PAL, Mr. Greener's done all these car shows, and he's done Easter egg hunts. It's like these letters portray us that we don't understand what the kids in the community needs. We are the community. These are our neighbors. Why do you think Ms. Bernal ran? He knows the community. He runs the church program for the kids. He understands what the kids need and want. When have we not done something what's best for the kids? And like Mr. Brazil said, we don't know the right choice what we're making, but we are making the right decision that we sleep at night knowing that we're keeping the kids as safe as we can. We have neighboring districts that let kids on campus for 2 days and then shut down. What was that for the kids? What did that do for the student? It gave them false hope, and it made the parents go out and buy school clothes because nobody went school clothes shopping in August. And so this family went and bought school clothes before Christmas, and now they're shut down. We're doing the best we can. I think it's the right choice. And it's very frustrating when we hear all these negative tones with us when the people writing it don't know who we are. We always put kids first. We're always on campus. Mike's been on campus for years volunteering on lunchtimes, correct? Yeah. We dedicate so much time, and it's a struggle this year. Nobody likes this year. Everyone's on campus. We are doing our best. I know that was a long rant, but we are doing our best. We're making the best decisions we can for the students, the families, and our staff. And we are putting other people first. And we all make decisions for our own families. Our families are different than the 1,100 kids that we're in charge of. So the decisions I make for my own kids aren't what I'm gonna make for the second grade class. And that's what you guys have to understand as a public and as staff. It's like, we're not just looking at what's best for our kids. What's best for my kids is them to be in school and hope they don't get sick. What's best for 1,100 kids is for them to be home safe. And that's what we have to keep portraying every single time we have a meeting and every time we hear the negative stuff about we're not hearing the positive stuff. We're not coming and reading letters when we go to the supermarket or the taco truck and like Mr. Greener says, like we're hearing all these positive comments. We're not coming and saying all those things. We're just hearing a couple negative letters every month, and it kills me to read it. It honestly does. It's not true. Some of the stuff's true for my own family. I agree with some of those letters, but it's not true what's best for 1,100 students and over 100 staff. All right, I'll just quit now while I'm ahead. Moving on to 14.1, next board meeting will be January 12th. The closed session's at 5:30, regular session's at 6. Do we have a motion to adjourn at 7:18? We have a first, do we have a second?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We off? Thanks.
One thing I did notice that I'm not